All right. Can you hear me, Dr. Sims and Dr. Mansour?
I can.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to allow our students to maybe take a break from the intense and awesome instruction, if you will, from Mr. John Meredith. My name's Pete Saronis. I am the former Chief Technology Officer at the United States Department of Education, if that offers some credibility to our audience here. But today I'm your moderator. I spent 25 years in government, spanning DoD, Department of Education, and Energy. I'm a huge fan of the topic today, one that's being taught. I'm very impressed with Sumo Logic's passion for educating a cybersecurity workforce, and we will touch on a number of topics along with the role that the federal government has been impressing upon and the work that private industry is really following that government lead for continued education. I'm joined today by Drs. Bradford Sims and Christopher Mansour, two amazing thought leaders. And by the end of this, I think you're going to realize are just great people in general. They're teachers, educators, and just folks who want to serve the greater good. This topic today is one that'll span education, training, and workforce development. And we hope today that both Dr. Sims, who hails or comes to us from Capital Technology University as the president, the 8th president, if it's correct in that factoid, and then Dr. Christopher Mansour from Mercyhurst University, by way of a number of incredible academic institutions, including my alma mater, Villanova University. Go Wildcats. And I know Doug Nadel also appreciates that shout out. So with that, I'm going to sort of set the stage really quickly. We have about 45 to 50 minutes. We just want to share stories, folks. Those who are taking the exam and the certification and training, we're going to hit on a number of topics. We may geek out a little bit, but really it's to share insight on this ever-evolving curriculum in our nation that supports OT systems, IT systems, and the need to stay curious. So with that, I'm going to kick it over and allow Dr. Sims to talk a bit about himself, his passion, and the wonderful work being done at Capital Technology University, and then we'll kick it over to Christopher. So Dr. Sims, the floor is yours.
Oh, thanks, Pete. So welcome, everyone. So just a quick, a little bit about me is I came out of the construction industry. I was working around the U.S. Building refineries. My degree's in construction management, so I did a lot of project management, but I was also the de facto IT person back in the 90s because I knew how to program and hook up printers back whenever that was new. So I did a little bit of both. And then I accidentally got into higher education, just out of the industry, never really meant to, but I enjoyed what I really enjoy about higher education is having degree programs that I can provide that students can have great careers. They can make good money and take care of themselves and their family. That's why I went to school, was to have a great career, and that's what I want to provide. So everywhere I worked, I've been involved with STEM or management of STEM because I know those are the markets that are high demand markets in industry. And I've always worked closely with industry, even when I moved to higher education, because, industry drives our economy, and universities, in my opinion, should be supporting that, what the industry needs. So I ended up here at Capital Technology University. We are one of the oldest programs that started out in information assurance before the 9/11 event, which actually really increased the number of students in demand in that area. And of course, over time, everything became cybersecurity as far as the way that we call it here at the university. And we offer bachelor's, master's, doctorates, and an associate degree in cybersecurity. But because of that, we are known in the Northeast. We are actually the NSA's hub for cybersecurity for all the schools in the Northeast. So we are part of that center that they go through because we're a center of academic excellence in cybersecurity. We are also SC Media's award as the best cybersecurity programs last year, and our department chair is the educator of the year this year for SC Media. And so our expertise in cybersecurity also has allowed us to branch out into critical infrastructure. So we offer degree programs at all levels in critical infrastructure, and connected to that, we do construction, facilities, aviation, and we connect cybersecurity and critical infrastructure to those areas because we're trying to keep on the edge of what industry needs. So back in 2018, when we launched critical infrastructure areas, we were talking about industrial control systems, operational technology, protecting manufacturing, refineries, pipelines, way before Colonial Pipeline event even happened, because we knew it was on the horizon. And today, of course, we're adding content in on CMMC as it develops as well. All of our classes are based around hands-on work. So we're not a think tank policy, but we actually want our students to walk out the door being technically competent to do the job. And we're located right between NSA and NASA. So a lot of our students work for those agencies, as well as many of the subcontractors in the Baltimore, DC area. So since our founding back in 1927, our founder was a Navy vet who started teaching folks how to build radios. And so we have kept that same career focus education here since 1927. That's my passion, is I want to provide back. So whether you're transitioning out of the military, you're a traditional age student, you're a career changer, or you're advancing in your career, we want you to have the tools to be the best in the high demand industry segments. And that's what we do well at Capital Tech.
Yeah, Dr. Sims, before I move over to Dr. Mansour, I mean, you hit on so many things, and I loved when you started with, you happened upon, I mean, this cybersecurity, physical security, network security for our students today, you can't go wrong. And I like to think of it as, you go to medical school, you go to law school, and then you decide where's that specialty. You don't just go to get a degree anymore. You're learning incredible stuff today from the great folks at Sumo about analytics and cloud and infrastructure, and you can go in so many of those directions. So Dr. Sims, that really spoke to me. And again, shout out to Capital Technology University. I did not know it went back that far, and it's got such a rich history, but I love the whether it's your mission statement or not, but it says supplying human capital to America's most technologically advanced government agencies and their private sector supply chains. That's pretty impressive. So I love that. And thank you for sharing and highlighting a few of the topics we'll get into today, like critical infrastructure and industrial control systems, which is very relevant, I think, on our humanity ecosystem of life. Dr. Mansour, floor is yours.
Thanks, Pete. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for having me. So I'm Chris Mansour. I'm an assistant professor of cybersecurity here at Mercyhurst University. And again, shout out to Villanova Wildcats, because that's where I come from. So I'm a graduate from Villanova in 2018. And that's when I joined Mercyhurst University to co-found and start the cybersecurity program here. A little bit about Mercyhurst University. We've been founded in 1926, so very close by Capital Technology University. And 20 to 25 years ago, the university started the intelligence studies program, which is now ranked one of the best intelligence studies programs across the nation. So our alums work for government agencies and private businesses as well, like Amazon and big companies. So the university realized in 2018 that to complement the intelligence studies, they need a cybersecurity aspect. And that is why they went into that direction. And I joined the university to co-found that program and develop the courses. We offer here an undergraduate degree in cybersecurity and a graduate degree, a master's degree of science as well in cybersecurity, and a grad certificate. And our program also follows the ABIT recommendations and the Department of Homeland Security as well recommendations. So it is designed for people who are interested in shifting their career or furthering their knowledge in the fields of cybersecurity to join, as long as they have an aptitude for learning and they don't need to have a necessary background in computing science and information sciences. I'm happy to be here today because, as Dr. Sim has mentioned, that basically Today, cybersecurity is a need because of the fact that malicious actors out there are targeting our businesses and our critical infrastructure. We've seen the colonial pipeline, and it's going to happen more, unfortunately, if we don't act now. And we have the necessary people to work in this field, necessary skill set. And our job as academics is to offer you this skill set, whether at the undergrad or the grad level, so that you go out there and protect our critical infrastructure, protect our businesses, and protect the information and our elections and so on and so forth. Cybersecurity is in every aspect of our lives today, and that is why it is important to be educated in this field. And it's not the job of IT only, it's the job of every individual and every single person inside any institution, whether you are in finance, healthcare, critical infrastructure, or you name it. It's the job of everyone to protect the organizations we work at, to protect the information we deal with, so that bad actors won't be able to gain access to that information or cause harm.
Well, that was two awesome summaries of your universities, which I think are amazing institutions. Knowing what I know now and what I've been studying personally, I again appreciate your passion, Dr. Mansour, and you mentioned a few things: career shifting, aptitudes for learning, and it's not only the job of IT. And I think for our group today, and again, we welcome questions, bring some in. We'll occasionally be looking at the chat. If you have a question and you want to do the raise the hand thing, I think John, Meredith, if that's enabled, then we can take a look at that. But we hope to impart perspective. And thank you again for those who've tuned in. There are three pillars that we'll hit on today: education, training, and workforce development. Very unique, three-legged stool. We'll use terms like lifelong learning, OT-IT integration, just looking at some of my notes, data provenance and integrity you're learning a bit about in the class, doing analytics in addition to doing mathematics and engineering. You don't have to be a geek to understand or do this. I wasn't the greatest math student, but I'll tell you what, when it comes to technology, I'm just curious and interested. So I applaud everyone for pursuing this. And again, shout out to Sumo for training people and certifying. And lastly, folks, there's no shortage of tools, whether it's Sumo Logic or any other tool. There is a toolbox everybody and every organization owns. And I would just encourage folks to not believe 1 minute, 1 second that there's a silver bullet, but that you need to know how to integrate. And I think that will be one of the topics that our guests will address. And I think that's where I want to go back to Dr. Sims here for a little bit. You think of, I want to go to a university and study. And when you hear and observe that there's more jobs available today in the industry, and where do you start? If you're speaking to that person who might be at that inflection point, like I was, frankly, when I came out of Villanova, I was at the Pentagon and I'm like, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. What am I doing here? I had a communications degree. Next thing you know, I'm working with the DARPA team on the Advanced Research Project Agency effort around the internetwork. And I just was like, I'm going to go learn this stuff. And it wasn't computer science, but it was how the internet worked. What are you seeing right now, Dr. Sims, in terms of class and instruction and skill sets that are burgeoning and are important for anybody thinking about that, whether career change or augmentation of where they are? And then a question to you as well, Dr. Mansour.
Sure. I mean, I understand about I wanted to be a TV game show host, but I couldn't find a program get involved in that. So I ended up where I was in construction. It's a funny thing, obviously, because it's a different path for different people. And there's not one right path. I mean, I'm a big proponent of apprenticeship programs for the trades. That's a wonderful way to get involved in industry, and you immediately start making money. And if you correlate that back to, what we have if you're just looking at the cybersecurity realm, of course, the market demand is huge, right? Right now, all the universities that have anything to do with cybersecurity can't produce enough graduates to fill market demand. It's just not there. And so certifications are a great way to, stack credentials that way. I know many universities like us will take certifications and give credit towards some of the program if a student comes in. Or you might start with a certificate at a university, like a 3 or 4 programs, your classes you take, and then you can use those for your classes or not, but at least you have a certificate. And so over the years, whenever I first got in the industry in the 90s, people from the trades could work their way up into management. And then for some reason, the wisdom at the top said, no, we want a bachelor's degree as entry level. So that became, the 2000s, where everybody had to have a bachelor's degree just to get the entry level job. But that doesn't necessarily mean the person is any better off than somebody who worked in the industry for several years and understands what it is. So it's partly company dynamic. Does that company fit with what you need and the way you see it, and what skill set are they looking for to get you in the door? So today, certifications is a great way to come in at a low entry point as far as your personal time invested instead of a full degree program. But content of the courses also provide those students in the academics that if they want their certification, the content's trained within those courses. And so, I would look, if I was going to shift to cybersecurity, one of the things that is already here at Capital Tech before I started that we've done well is for folks who had a bachelor's degree, you could go into the master's, and there was 3 additional leveling courses that gave you some programming, some understanding of the whole, certification, all that type of thing. And you could take those, and then you could take the hands-on cyber classes that you needed to get out and be successful in that job. So, so many positions out there at different levels. I mean, there's managers that need lesser of the technical, nuts and bolts skills. There's the people who need the nuts and bolts skills to get it done. So depending on what you like to do, there's lots of opportunities. And I think it's about trying to delineate where you want to fit into that, if you want to switch into that, because the market's huge and you're going to get a good job and you're going to get a well-paid job. And on top of that, if you're already cleared, you're going to get an even better job. Secret clearances that's unbelievable with the cybersecurity degree, what you can get in the region, at least between where I am, Baltimore and DC. So that's another additive aspect. And for us at Capital, we actually train our undergraduate students how to complete security clearances, because there's some nuances to it that if you don't know what you've done, you could be out of the clearance quickly, and you have to be careful the way that you complete it so that it's all legit. So it's a hard answer depending on how you want to get into the system whenever you change. But I think the skill sets, obviously, whatever you learn, it's going to still be a benefit in the end, because you can put it on your resume and it'll help you get to that next step as you find that career that you really, really want in the end. You can't go wrong in the whole area of cybersecurity or computer science. Something like that is always a great add-on to your resume. And I just wanted to mention too, one thing that you both talked about is that it's not math heavy in these areas, right? And so we have the traditional age students, I call it math phobic, coming into school. A lot of them are afraid they can't do it. They can do the math, but in the programs that we have, even in cybersecurity, we don't require the heavy engineering math. That it's more about the analytical process that you understand walking in the door, and you can apply that. And so some of the best students that you see, if you're looking at younger students coming out of high school, really are the ones that had the most math semesters, because they already are thinking like you need them to think when they walk in the door. It's not about the math classes. It's just about that mindset of that analytical look into the world. And that helps you more easily adapt to these type of programs.
All right. Well, I wrote down in my only way to learn and capture, and I see Dr. Mansour, you're nodding. So riffing off or building on top of, and by the way, that was an awesome response, Dr. Sims. I mean, we'll get into maybe the geeky tech stuff here in a minute, but apprenticeship market demand certifications, obviously today is a great example what Sumo's offering to individuals. I love the pedigree back in the day, and it still does matter. People say, oh, you were a CTO at 2 agencies. I'm like, yeah, I went to Villanova and Johns Hopkins, but to me, I always tell prospective to be in the workforce students or my colleagues in government who are leaving, you want to be able to educate, inform, and enlighten in a response when somebody says, tell me about this quantum stuff, or what happened at Colonial, being able to articulate that message I think is something you don't just get in a degree. And I think storytelling is a huge component in this space, and hands-on experience. I heard that come through. I think it's a combination of everything. So folks, if you're looking to shift career, obviously keep learning, be doing something, follow the news, learn about the topics. The infrastructure bill is pun intended critical today, and we'll talk about that as well. Dr. Mansour, why don't you just riff off that or build upon and emphasize where you think students and prospective career changers might get some hope that, hey, this could be a fit for me?
Sure. So I just would like first to re-emphasize and reinforce what Dr. Sims has already mentioned. Cybersecurity is in a huge demand. We already established that fact. And what the pandemic have taught us is that we are in heavy reliance on technology, and our businesses are heavily reliant on technology. And when we use that technology, we are opening up our surface area for being targeted, regardless what business do we belong to, whether we are in healthcare, in finance, in industry, critical infrastructure, government, academic, you name it. And the idea that you only need to be in computer science or mathematics to join a cybersecurity program to develop those skills is obsolete. All you need to do now, all you need to have is aptitude for learning, willing to be a long life learner, and knowing what skills are you interested in. And the math comes later. For example, in our program, when students come in, we don't expect them to be experts in mathematics. We actually teach them the necessary math per course. For example, when we teach cryptography, the information security, we need some math there, and that's where we introduce the math component. But if you are talking about cyber risk management, we don't need math other than some risk calculations, and that's it. And that's what we teach in that course. And of course, we teach you all the necessary risk management frameworks and how to conduct risk analysis and risk management and so on and so forth. So again, to join such programs, and that's what I like to tell my students, to answer the call of duty of the nation, to defend the nation against cyber attacks, all you need to do is have an aptitude for learning. And today, all the businesses are shifting to the cloud. You've all seen cloud computing everywhere. Everything is in the cloud. So there is a shortage of skills of people who understand what is the cloud? How does the cloud work? How can I put the different kinds of cloud, whether public cloud, private cloud, or a hybrid cloud? What can I do as a person to protect the cloud or be part of securing the cloud and have my data protected while at rest or in motion or in action? By in motion, I mean being transferred between the different entities. We need to worry about data loss prevention, all these kind of concepts. These are things that every single individual in any organization needs to worry about. And what our academic institutions try to do is to give you all this necessary skill set to understand what are the necessary things you need to do to protect yourself, protect the data, and protect your organizations. So that's where things are heading. And it's important to think about it now, since you want to be a leader in that domain. You want to be a person who can exert change or set standards. So you better start from now educating yourself and expanding your knowledge into the field without fear and having just your passion for learning and go for it. You don't need necessarily to be an expert in math or an expert in computer science to join any kind of work like that.
Yeah, Dr. Mansour, I'm going to stay with you for a minute because, and I appreciate that. That was great feedback. And I know I'm going to be thinking of you whenever I hear this aptitude and passion for learning. I mean, you have that, you're already ahead of the game. It's not only the job for the IT people. I think that's something that I'd like to hear a little bit more about in terms of, an organization today depends on, in this case, it could be the cloud infrastructure. Doug has spoken quite a bit about Sumo's just wanting to impress upon that, look, if you trust the cloud and the data that's in the cloud and how to secure the cloud, having that term, I think, for Doug, is observability. It all needs to be packaged so that you can do that analysis and mitigate risk. So, a shout out to you, Dr. Mansour, for kind of addressing the cloud as this new infrastructure that every business and every industry, every critical sector in our country depends on. I wanted to ask you one more of these questions that might be less about the education, but this common language, right? So many tools, Dr. Mansour. You go to class at Mercyhurst, you learn something. How do you, a practitioner, a teacher, stay abreast of this? And what advice do you have? Not so much pursue the career, but how to stay current. Is it watching the news, reading about what happened at Colonial or ERCOT, or what could have happened in the meat industry or Katrina? What are some tips you can provide? And then same to you, Dr. Sims, coming back in a bit.
Sure. So answering your question, there's a plethora of resources out there that sometimes it's daunting, the amount of information you can find out there. But I personally, I can tell you, as a practitioner, I'm always current in the sense I'm a member of Association of Computing Machinery, and they have a group for cybersecurity. They have a lot of learning resources and a lot of kind of books that you can read, and up-to-date books, and follow up with the latest research. I'm also a member of IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. So you kind of access a lot of resources there. That is if you are more into the technical side, heavy technical side. But there's also the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They post a lot of frameworks out there, a lot of resources that are easy to understand, easily grasped, and you cannot imagine how much they're easily applicable or understandable at any level you are in your organization, to your particular area of work. And of course, we follow the news, we see latest attacks, latest hacks. We try to dig in, understand more what's going on from academic and research perspective. But as an individual, there's plenty of resources online that you can follow. As I said, a great resource is Association of Computing Machinery and IEEE. That's where my major information comes from.
Yeah, and Dr. Mansour, I'm going to just to build off that for a quick second here. Folks, we all know what NIST is, the National Institutes of Standard and Technology, but I'm just going to give a shout out to the Workforce Framework for Cybersecurity, which is the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, NICE, great acronym. Definitely take a look at that. The Cybersecurity Framework version 1.1, I think, helps agencies or people look at their business and develop a risk profile. Executive Order 14028 is the third that came out this past May as a result of what happened in Colonial. I mean, just read the executive summaries, folks, because it really does paint the picture of why this cyber physical security, network security is really just expanding, and you need to have a sense of how it all impacts us from a humanity perspective. Dr. Sims, go ahead. I want
to add one more quick thing.
Dr. Mansour, my fault.
I want to add a quick thing, if you don't mind. The National Cybersecurity Watch, CyberWatch group, it's also another group that you can look into, and they have a lot of resources that can help you understand the importance of cybersecurity and the skill shortage and things that are needed. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just want to add that up.
Hey, man, interrupt all you want. That's the whole point, right? None of this is scripted for anybody watching. It's just not my style. Dr. Sims, you want to riff off some of that, reference some resources or some tips?
I mean, there's already a lot talked about. I mean, NIST is awesome. You know, that's a good free resource to just learn about. You know, as a CMMC comes out, you can go see their resources for free and start reading about that. CISA, you know, I go there a lot, check out what's going on as that keeps building up. There's specific groups like around one area that I like is the industrial control systems, the Control Global. You can go read, and then I'm a member of InfraGard, and InfraGard it's free if you join it, and they provide seminars for free. And I've been to seminars about attacks on wastewater treatment facilities in California and protection to, you know, whatever else they have that's related to your area. Once you're a member of it, you can get in access to their database and see what's going on because they have local chapters everywhere. So many resources out there to get free information, because, you know, the goal is to educate more people about the dangers as you know, as we talk a little bit more about my passion in industrial control systems and operational technology. The way I look at it is for critical infrastructure. That's really my concern. So I came from the construction industry, and I knew technology, but when I came to Capital, we're applying cybersecurity to that structure, right? Because the one thing that I notice is that, you know, a 36-inch valve, not a lot of people have seen, but that 36-inch valve is operated by technology. And so when you combine the two, it starts bringing a picture to people's heads about how this could be attacked and how you need to protect it, because it's operated through operational technology, which is, you know, nothing more than a control program. And so to know more about that, because one of the things that I guess my take on the general public is, since you don't see how electrical grid works, you don't see how a power plant works, you don't see how a manufacturing facility works, you don't realize how dangerous and we are, to how much we could be attacked easily. And so if you're like me and you have young children at home, I think probably they could turn off the water, they could turn off the manufacturing, and they can turn off the gas. But if the electricity went down and my kids couldn't get internet, I'd really be in trouble then, right? But I don't think anybody really understands how tenuous our situation is on all these attack points, because even under NIST, when you read the rules, they still talk about physical security as well, which is important. But the likelihood realistically of a foreign entity coming in the country and blowing up a power grid or wastewater treatment facility is much smaller than somebody just attacking them through cyber. And that's where the education needs to keep expanding, how vulnerable we are to what could happen to any of these processes in the future. And if you live in a area dependent upon it, especially a metropolitan area, you know, your life could change overnight.
Yeah, I'm going to come to Doug. I saw Doug raising his hand. And again, folks, we encourage hand raising or just interrupting. But Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want to just interrupt the fine Dr. Sims. You know, Doctor pointed out all of the available papers and resources that are out there. I just wanted to mention, I'll put in the chat, the NIST National Cybersecurity of Excellence has a website where you can download some papers around the industrial Internet of Things. Sumo Logic's been proud to be involved in that CRADA, and there's some great information in there on how to run renewable energy grid that Sumo Logic protected through basically tool unification. So I'll go ahead and put that out there in the chat, and that's what I want to add, Pete. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that, Doug. And any acronym, if you don't mind taking that and just pushing out a link to that, that would be awesome. And I want to give a shout out to Doug and team at Sumo. It's a big deal. The National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, which is a component of the National Institutes of Standard and Technology, is an amazing place. And it really is a true public-private partnership. And Doug's reference to the effort, the CRADA that he is leading with his team and others, is around securing the industrial Internet of Things. Spoiler alert, we're going to go there, Dr. Sims here and Chris with IoT and OTIT. But yeah, definitely check that out. Dr. Sims mentioned critical infrastructure and CISA, folks. CISA is, again, an acronym underneath DISA. I think it's a Cybersecurity Information Security Agency, used to be the NPPD, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, 16 sectors in our country are defined as critical, meaning if something bad happens to the power grid or the water systems or the transportation systems or the health and public health sector, I mean, those are things that impact us as human beings. And Dr. Mansour mentioned that in terms of impact. And technology is underpinning every business, every sector. So please study the DHS.gov site on critical infrastructure and see this is what they're talking about on the Hill when it comes to planes, trains, roads, broadband, and automobiles, because it's really a bipartisan topic that impacts us and our children, to Dr. Sims's point. So, okay, why don't we go to Dr. Mansour, because you know I think he's itching. The OTIT discussion, operational technology, information technology. I quote from the first page of Executive Order in May 12, 2021, and it speaks to defending the vital institutions that underpin the American way of life. I'm just reading from it. The scope of protection and security, not cyber, but a component of which is cyber, must include systems that process data, information technology, and those that run the vital machinery that ensures our safety, also known as operational technology. Dr. Mansour, can you distill down this OTIT thing for the average person in your own words that just shows this world that we're evolving into where everything's connected?
So in industrial control systems, there's the IT aspect, which is basically the information technology aspects. These are the systems that deal with the data, the information, and the human machine interface. So these are the computers and the devices that the engineers or the users use to control that critical infrastructure, whether it is a smart grid component, whether it is a nuclear facility, whether it is a metering infrastructure, whether it is a sensing infrastructure, and all these kind of things. The problem is that the malicious actors out there are getting smarter in the sense they are developing malware or malicious software that not just get access to the IT systems, but also goes a way beyond that into the industrial control system itself. We've seen that first with Stuxnet. It was the first time we've seen a worm that is actually ended up transferring into the industrial control system and mutating itself to hide itself. So the problem is those systems sometimes, due to variety of reasons, one of them lack of investment, lack of keeping them updated, due to the fact that we cannot shut down these critical infrastructure to renew those devices or renew these systems, they are exposed to a lot of vulnerabilities. And those vulnerabilities actually attract a lot of threats. And that's what ends up allowing bad actors to gain access to the control systems. As Dr. Sims earlier said, they can turn down your water treatment center. They can shut down electric grid, or they can turn off the New York Stock Exchange, or even think about a huge metro or subway where they can, the system that controls which train is coming which way, and now it's your turn, not your turn, what could end up happening underneath in a subway. So that is why critical infrastructure is necessary. We've seen the Colonial Pipeline and expect to see more if we don't act on upgrading those systems and investing more resources and supply those people who are skilled to upgrade those systems and work on securing those systems. The other small aspect that I want to touch base on is certain sensing devices, when they are rushed into the market or being developed, they are rushed into from an engineering perspective, but sometimes they lack the security background necessity for that. Security comes as an afterthought rather than the design during the beginning. And they have a plethora of protocols that that are not sometimes compatible, or they do not talk with each other. So the necessity shortage is in terms of unifying those protocols and making sure that those different vendors or different providers end up somehow in a unified protocol where they can communicate with each other, so that us as cybersecurity practitioners can focus onto securing those kind of communication protocols and not allowing vulnerabilities to exist. Of course, it's a cat and mouse game. We're going to always have, at the end of the day, vulnerabilities, but we're going to try as much as we can to eliminate as much as possible.
Yeah, two things. Dr. Sims, I want to come to you and maybe wax a bit about your just view of OT and IT and convergence integration. But two things came up. Dr. Mansour mentioned don't allow security considerations to be an afterthought. 800-161, a NIST document, is a great read about baking in, not building on. And the other thing is, and I'm sure Dr. Sims will talk about this too here, is we're bringing up exemplars of Colonial and ERCOT. Hey, don't forget Katrina. Wildfires are happening in the West Coast. You know, PG&E, people shooting down transmission lines. Folks, cyber, physical, and network security are three legs of another stool that we have to be trained in, be aware of, because they clearly impact critical infrastructure and the resilience, which is the word of the day, week, month, year that we need to be thinking about. So Dr. Sims, OT, IT, wax a bit for us.
Well, you know, again, I think my interest in that is I came at it from a physical standpoint because I was in the construction end, and you know, I thought about how these large devices, whether they're pumps or valves, and they're really large in industrial facilities, and most of the general public doesn't see that OT, it's called operational technology, that tells that device when to turn on and when to turn off. And that device is connected to the control center via usually industrial Internet of Things. And so in the control center is usually where, you know, you have maybe the HMI control panels or whatever in there that's running the system. So whenever we usually think about cybersecurity, we usually are thinking more in general about protection of a financial system network or something, or some type of network. So in the United States, we are so heavily reliant on technology that you can start to see where like any of these foreign entities attacking the IT at an industrial facility can get to the OT, which OT in industrial facilities is designed to operate the device no matter what. Because remember, they're producing a product. And so they want that product to be produced, whether that's refining gas or whatever it is. And IT traditionally shuts itself down to protect data. So if a foreign entity can get that IT and override it and force that operational technology to keep a dangerous device on, let's say it's a potential explosive chemical, and keep it flowing until it gets to some hot point, they could blow up a plant from, you know, halfway around the world. So that's a different mindset than maybe whenever, you know, especially whenever you see students come out of high school that are thinking cybersecurity and protecting the network. So it's important that as folks go into these areas, they realize that there's a vast array of this cybersecurity that you may want to be involved in a specific market that really, because you could live your whole market in protecting the refinery, working for ARCO. I mean, it's a career path, you know, that you could understand those devices and protect it. And so I think that's something that is catching up, you know, industrial control systems, but it certainly wasn't on the forethought. And you know, in America, since again we're so reliant on technology, you have to look at some of the foreign countries that still use old analog processes. They are not on everything connected to the internet like we are, and so we can't attack them back because they're not connected like we are. So it's good in one way because, you know, everything's connected, but it's a dangerous thing as well. And then of course the newer things that you're getting into that expands beyond that is that the facilities that even operate this are now smart buildings. And so maybe, I don't know, that your door could be shut to your control room and you can't get out from some area. You know what I mean? It's all connected, and it's such a big umbrella now under cybersecurity that lots of aspects to get involved with, but lots of career opportunities for those folks who want to move into this. And going back to even the NIST, what you're talking about, I think maybe one of the processes that anybody getting involved in this area might think about doing is look at their company they're working for, and maybe not for the company, but for yourself, write an internal business continuity plan. And that makes you think about all these things that could go wrong. And that starts putting the pieces together and makes you aware of all these different aspects, from physical attacks as well as the, you know, cyber attacks that you may not appreciate, because, you know, at big companies, really your most dangerous people are your employees, right? Because they may not be educated, or they may be providing passwords, you don't know, and you need to keep them in the loop of how important it is that they protect their own company.
Yeah, Dr. Sims, a couple things again for the group that spoke to me. The HMI, human machine interface, which speaks to whether it's a 50-year-old control system, SCADA network that's running in a utility, that is a lexicon. That's a vernacular. That is a different set of protocols, folks, than what we know to be true when you think of internet protocol. And I see Dr. Mansour nodding his head because you brought up Stuxnet and programmable logic controllers. Trust me, I love talking about what could have gone really bad in those incidents, the Aurora incident, et cetera. But again, Dr. Sims touched on that, folks. There's nothing to say that OT is going away. It's not. IT is here, but some people are still, I think, concerned about putting that IP address that talks to a building management system like we saw with Target that touches an HVAC, which could shut down. I mean, you see the risk here. And I think if you take away from today, and I give a shout out back to Doug and the great folks at Sumo who are teaching folks how with the modern infrastructure like cloud, the opportunity to have a SIM tool, a SOAR tool, the observability to make sense. We still need human intuition as well as dashboards and platforms to help us make decisions to mitigate risk to our mission. So thank you, Dr. Sims. Dr. Mansour, any comments on that
I,
segment?
I would like to add one quick thing that Dr. Sims has mentioned to reinforce it. I always tell we've done some workshops here for nonprofits, and I've always told them your employees are your human firewall. They are the first line of defense against every cyber attack. So Dr. Sims touched on sometimes the employees of an organization could be the first line, the first target. And that's why you are the first line of defense. And that's why workshops like this one, panels like this one, and things like the resources that Sumo Logic is offering and the NIST is offering trains you to be well aware of the different cyber threats that are out there so that you can protect yourself and the organization you work at. Because again, you are the first line of defense against every cyber attack, whether it's from phishing that can end up with a massive ransomware, or whether it's a phishing email that can end up in a malware that could cause industrial control systems failure and stuff like that.
Okay, two things. Definitely tweetable moment. You are introducing human firewall as that's what our employees are. I love that. At least first time I heard it, and I thought it was awesome. I would have been tweeting that out. And Dr. Sims, I think of a mentor of mine way back in the day when I was at Department of Education, where I was learning project control management stuff. And he said, son, show me a man. He did say man, but show me a person we'll use without a plan, and I'll show you a person who plans to fail. And a business continuity plan, no brainer. If you don't have a plan, how do you plan to recover? And I think you emphasize that what a teaching moment it could be to go through the process, even if you don't have a script that you're aware of, build your own and learn. So thank you for both of those. Doug, do you have any comments or John Meredith, we're talking a lot about things that you're teaching today, just before we move into the segment that I like, which is for Dr. Mansour and Dr. Sims to give us that art of the possible. It's not all about cyber and bad guys and gals, but like innovation that you're excited about. But Doug or John, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Let me go ahead and just because we're going to run out of time, I want to thank the audience. But look, the modern era, technology, communications, humans just cannot keep up, right? We really need to have some robust, scalable, cloud-based tools that can handle that. And that's what I'm so proud of Sumo Logic about. But I'm also glad that we're able to bring together career-minded people like we have today. But I think I would leave it at that, Pete. You know, this session's not about Sumo Logic. There's a lot of that education going on today. But yeah, just at the end of the day, leverage available tools that are out there is part of your cybersecurity plan is what I would guide folks on.
Yep. Well, hey, listen, we're not plugging. We're just mentioning that there's a lot of thought leadership going on, and your humility is evident. But thank you. I just thought it would be a good idea to mention, since our panelists keep talking about innovation and moving the needle. So thank you, Doug. John, any comment before I kick it back to Chris and Brad?
Oh, nothing from me yet. Thank you.
You got it. And again, folks, anything, give us an ask. We have about 10 minutes or so left, and we have two more segments. One that we're going to jump into, which is this art of the possible, and then the parting shot. So let's go to Dr. Sims. Dr. Sims, the term innovation, coolness factor, obviously new platforms that allow us to distill information, if you will, with AI and machine learning. What are some technologies, stay agnostic or call them out, that get you excited about how industry is helping advance, or government, these tool sets?
Yeah, we're really seeing kind of a pickup with machine learning and blockchain and data. Data drives it all, right? So our computer science even really is using those as the 3 tracks, because we're seeing that kind of focus. Technology, we were a test center here at Capitol Tech a couple years ago from this company that's created a device. Basically, as you know, on the internet, if you hook something to the internet, it's got an IP address, so it's trackable. And on top of that, usually from what I've seen, cybersecurity insurance is based on the number of IP addresses you have. And so you're buying it like that. Well, they've created a really cool device that basically, let's say you're a hospital, your internet goes in the front of the device and comes out the other side, and they watch the entry point for attacks, and they can shut it down if they need to, but it removes everything in that physical location off the IP. You can never find them. And so therefore that technology is something that, is highly desirable, but like the DoD, they're looking into that because of that point, but it also can save your company lots of money. And then you're forcing the insurance companies, how's the next way that they're going to charge you for cybersecurity protection? Not to say that's the only thing, but just technology like that we see getting developed from these small startups, and then they get connected to whether it's a government agency or one of the subcontractors that really want to use it and can employ it and grow the company because there's a demand and it helps your organization. So what the future holds in that is really a lot of things that that aren't, you don't have to be, I guess the thing is, you don't have to be a blockchain expert, but if you know about it and you generally know how it operates, you can employ that technology to a lot of different things you're doing. And maybe your industry uses it and you're knowledgeable enough to say, this is how I want it managed through the company. And it's a great tool. And so these tools, I think that's kind of where continuing education may be the way that you build up that on your knowledge base. You find a topic and then you take a short course on it. I don't think that you can go wrong with always learning about what's coming next, because, let's think about it. Up until approximately 1980, for the rest of human history that we know about, how much has technology progressed just since then, right? I mean, exponentially. And so what are we going to see in the future? I don't know, but it's certainly, moving more quickly. And to be able to be part of that, in these technology areas is also something that is going to, it's going to be a career that you can't go wrong in, right? Because, on the flip side of it, you have careers where robotics are taking over human employment. And that's the nature of things, especially now. We have huge short supply of people working in all the industry segments, whether it's construction, cybersecurity. I get calls from people like Verizon wanting more technical employees. And I'm like, I need more students. I'm happy to educate them. And they're like, we don't know where to get the students either. And so the market for everything that we're building now is only growing. And it's a great, area to advance your career in and learn enough of it that either you want to do it and be the hands-on person, or you're going to manage it, and you got to be knowledgeable enough to know what you're managing in that process.
Yeah, Dr. Sims, that was amazing, because you started with blockchain, machine learning, cyber insurance. I was writing down, the threat landscape so broad now, and from all levels, to Dr. Mansour's comment earlier about you need to be educated. C-levels can't say, hey, go hire me a CISO and I'm good. When something bad happens, guess whose head may roll? And I hate to use that phrase, but somebody's going to be asking questions, and it's you better have some knowledge. And I think that's, again, at both of your universities, you've emphasized that it's not, what did you say? Having an aptitude for learning, but it's not the job of only the IT folks, Dr. Mansour. So it's 1:22, but I want to get to Dr. Mansour. You heard some of the capabilities, and I think Dr. Sims emphasized, understanding blockchain is one thing, but applying it to, say, a sector is going to be different in its application. What are some of the innovations and capabilities that excite you about, the future?
So Dr. Sims mentioned all these buzz keywords, and he's 100% right. We've seen a lot of development in terms of AI and machine learning. And I am excited more about how can we leverage AI in terms of determining and predicting threats before those threats occurring. So basically, based on whether analyzing social media in certain communities or certain aspects, to analyze whether there is going to be, to predict the potential or the likelihood of an attack coming up before an election, before certain designs, and to have AI help in terms of cybersecurity analysis, in the sense of we know the threats are changing. AI can help us adapt to that change quickly and detect those changes ahead of time before we fall victims for those changes. And another aspect I would like to some people to consider. When we talk about cybersecurity, we all tend to focus more about the software, the policies, the networks, the industrial control systems, and we don't always highlight the importance of the security of the design of our hardware trust, hardware security. So basically, whether it is security through the chip design, whether through the security through any kind of ASIC or FPGA or any kind of hardware that you are implementing, because that also can help the software person or the firmware person to understand security. As much as you can do in terms of software and firmware and network, if your hardware has a hidden Trojan or by obfuscation, it can be activated by a particular electrical signal or a binary stream, and it could cause a disastrous effect down the road. So something also to keep in mind, the research in terms of hardware security, whether it is chip design or FPGAs or any kind like that. And one last thing I want to highlight, Apple is talking about private relay in the new operating system. I know I'm not sure if we are supposed to name vendors or not, but I apologize ahead of time. I'm very interested in the way private relay is working, because this is the first consumer-based operating system that is actually worrying about your privacy and being tracked or not. I'm highly interested in learning more about how that works and going into details as well. So that is something that intrigued me lately with their new release.
Well, thank you for that. And I think that this idea of predicting before something bad happens is absolutely where analytics can come in, and doing prescriptive analysis in addition to, what did we learn from a description, or what happened and what did we learn? Now we can say, hey, the what if scenarios. And I think that's where AI and machine learning are absolutely going to help build that secure, resilient infrastructure of the future. I want to give a shout out to the national laboratories, just because I do. There are 17 in our country, and I think every university, as well as federal agency, as well as technology provider, is aware that this is another ecosystem of experts and academics focused on exactly what we're talking about, from education, but also cyber physical security. So these are national treasures, folks. Read about them. There are, again, only 17 in our country. And then, I guess our last segment here is the parting shot. I guess it is. Dr. Sims, in the spirit of a day of learning, and we've covered a broad swath at a very topical level, what's something that you heard today, or you want to emphasize and leave with our audience?
Well, let's real quick go back to your comment on quantum computing. We do have a quantum computing degree, and I like to jokingly say that's the only program that students are both students in and not students in at the same time. So it's really, I think the key that I've learned is keep informed, whether it's reading relevant journal articles or looking at courses that can enhance your knowledge base, because the technology area is so, changes so frequently that if I wasn't looking at these things on a regular basis, I'd be stuck in the past too. And so I like DOS. DOS was easy for me. It's much more confusing now. So I'm not teaching in the classroom, but you have to be able to just continually think about, what do I need to invest my time in? Because you don't have much time. Nobody does today with families and work and everything, but those areas just to keep up on. And then if something's important, then you delve down into it and you say, I need to know this, and this is something that's important to me. So it's about just learning, lifelong learner. And whether that's free information or sometimes I pay for it to do it myself, I think it's a high value to continue to look at that to enhance both my own personal interest, because I like learning stuff, to what do I need to know for work. And, in my case, because we're worried about having programs that are industry in need programs, we're constantly looking at, what market segments has a shortfall and where can we add that area to help out.
All right. Well, that was wonderful. It all boiled down to staying informed, which is simple and yet not easy, but it takes passion. And I appreciate that. Dr. Mansour, parting shot.
So basically, you already have mentioned the key here. Stay learning, keep moving forward, educate yourself, whether for free or invest in your own education. And remember, again, you are part of securing your organization and your nation. So make sure you are always aware of the different cyber threats out there and keep up with the technologies that are out there. There is a lot, but you always can play an important part. Every part matters, and you can be a part of that change.
Well, I'm going to summarize my parting shot this way, since you folks both said, stay informed, stay current. I'm going to add that invest in yourself, which I love. And I'm just going to say, stay curious. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Doug and John. I want to thank Dr. Mansour for your brilliance, Dr. Sims for your brilliance. Get to know these folks, look at them online, and again, you know, keep your passion fire burning, fellas. It was an honor, and thank you to Sumo Logic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doctors and Pete, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know it makes a difference. John is doing a great job in the education today, so I encourage all of the, I'll call them students, to ask some curious questions, like Pete mentions. At the end of the day, this is really about you. So lead. Make sure you get what you need and keep asking questions. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. For my attendees, I would like you guys to, let's take a break. So let me stop the recording. I'm going to stop this recording. I'm going to create a new recording.